Hello, hello. Hi, everybody. Good afternoon to everyone who is, in New South Wales and Victoria and Tasmania, and I guess good morning, late morning to everyone else around Australia. Very funny little set of time zones, isn't it, when daylight savings gets started? But we'll just get straight into it today. Wanted to say a bit of a complicated hi. Hey everyone, we just had a bit of an intermittent stream issue there. I apologize about that. I got ourselves back up and going. Let's waste no time because it's probably people's lunch break. So, firstly, hello. We've been doing these webinars for a while. If it's your first time to come to one of these webinars, my name's Hayden, and I'm going to be the host for today. So that just means that I'll be the one talking to you for the next 30 minutes. And I'll be the one answering your questions at the end. And before we get started, if you do want to post a question in the chat, you do have to subscribe to the channel. That's mostly just to manage spam. If you don't want to subscribe to Pearl, you can subscribe, comment, and unsubscribe after. No issue at all. And before we go any further, I do need to read out this disclaimer that any advice is general in nature and does not consider your financial situation, needs, or objectives. So consider whether it's appropriate for you. You should also seek professional advice before making a financial decision. As Pearler, we are an authorized representative of Sandland Private Wealth and their AFSL, and we also have our financial services guide on the website. And if you are considering any products during the show, be sure to read any relevant product disclosure statements and target market determinations available from the product issuer's website. That can be on our website before making a decision. And that one's in particular very important for our micro product or for a lot of our Head Start product users as well. So that little bit of boring housekeeping's over. I'm going to get straight into it. A reminder before we get started in detail is I think something that I've been chatting with my co-founder a lot recently around, really trying to reinforce the purpose of what we're doing at Pearler, particularly because I know we do a lot of things sometimes, right? We have a few different products, a few different ideas that we're always exploring. I know having talked to some customers, it can be difficult to even summarize what Pearler is sometimes. So I hope everyone listening today I can at least leave with when we as a company get up every day to do the work, this is kind of what is front and center of our minds, which is that we know that everyday Australians, probably like a lot of the people listening here, don't want to rent forever, and they certainly don't want to work forever. We know that this uphill battle is stressful because in the face, particularly, these days with inflation, everything, those things going on, it has a big effect on people. So we simply see ourselves as the tool builders and educators to get people on track to tackle this challenge. And a lot of what we're talking about today, just like in previous webinars, is all just about what are we doing, whether it's a tiny little detail or a bigger detail to actually, make an impact on that journey. So we'll be talking about what's coming up in terms of product today, both in terms of what's been going on now, what we can kind of say, yep, you can check this out ASAP, what's coming up soon, and then also what's kind of down the track. So now's pretty much you can play with these things today. Soon is, keep an eye on it in the next, 1 to 3 months. And later is one of those things where we don't quite know when we're going to be able to smash it out and release it yet, but it will, it's coming imminently and it's being worked on every day. So these are all things that are getting a lot of time and attention at Pearler, and it's not everything either. There's definitely more than this that's going on. But, we can only talk about so much. And again, I know a lot of people here are on their lunch break or some equivalent, so we try and get through it quickly. Now, we're going to tackle some of the now stuff first. There's a few small pieces here, so kind of not too many major updates, but a couple of tiny ones. We've got a little AI search experiment. This is in beta. It's not currently, I guess, in full ready production mode. There's a disclaimer on it that kind of says, we're still trialing this out. But we've essentially been, using this kind of wave of chat GPT and stuff to train our own little model, our AI model, to help answer questions for Pearl users. So we actually kind of give it a lot of the content we write and the things we use to help customers. And when you actually go to the search bar on the platform now, you can type in a question, and this I think should be available for some customers at least. If you don't see it yet, just keep an eye out for it in the next few weeks. But you type a question like, what is a dividend? And you'll not only get the standard kind of suggestions and articles that you get, but you may actually get a response that unpacks it for you. We're still doing some final quality control stuff, which is why we're testing it with customers. It's also pretty clear that it's not a financial advisor. It is an AI-powered chatbot. and it should not be considered financial advice. And we let our customers rate the responses at the end too, which is how we're collecting feedback. So if you do have a kind of query and you use the search bar, you can try that out sometime. We try not to get overhyped about a lot of this stuff. We just try and make little sensible baby steps in the right direction. So this is one of our little baby steps on the path to trying to, make it easier for customers to get the answers they're looking for rather than having to search through a whole list of stuff. So check that out if you see it on the platform. If not, sit tight and you will see it soon. Another cool little update is we have push authentication updates. So quick bit of recap for people on this top part. On Perler, to do any sensitive action, you need to use two-factor authentication. What this means is you either get a text message from us, you get an authenticator app, when you log into your authenticator app, kind of more technically known as TOTP, or you get an in-app. Sorry about that. We just had the stream crash again. Not too sure why. This in-app notification, something we launched a little while ago, probably like in the last 6 to 12 months, where instead of getting an SMS or something like that, you get a little notification that comes from the mobile app. So this is only for people who have the mobile app installed. There are lots of benefits to it. It's a little bit more reliable. We can send some extra information. We can do it as long as you have an internet connection. You don't need the Authenticator app on your phone and a few other things like that. But we have added some new features. For instance, you're able to set this in-app push notification up on multiple devices now. So let's say you have a couple of phones that are connected to the same Perler account, or you have a phone and a tablet, or something along those lines. You can actually have multiple points to verify it when you need to do a sensitive action like a withdrawal or making an investment. We're also able to more easily verify you when you call up Perler. So if you call up Perler to ask a question, we often do need to verify your identity for privacy and security reasons. That is a lot smoother now because of the in-app notifications. We can do it through that. We can simply say, hey, we just sent a notification to your phone. Can you check it? And there's also a geolocation or IP of the requester when you get the notification. So what that means is that you will see it. I don't have a screenshot for you today. But if, let's say, I'm on my computer right now, like my laptop or my desktop or whatever, and I try and make an investment and I get a push notification on my phone, it'll actually come up and tell you where that request was made to give you a little bit more confidence that, this isn't a forgery or some, request from Russia or, North Korea or anything crazy like that. It's actually coming from where you expect it. So just some very minor little security quality of life updates as well. Now, one of the bigger updates that customers would have seen is our update to Automate. This has been something that we had been working on for a little while. It's quite a large update, so there's been the occasional teething issue, but I just wanted to, talk at a high level really quickly about what's gone on here. So I think understanding the history of Automate and Perler is pretty important. When we first started launching our early products, we called it Auto Invest because all you could do with it was invest money, basically. And it was very simple. It did one really specific activity for a specific type of customer, which was our very, very early customer. There was about 1,000, 2,000 people we had in that target demographic, hyper-focused on them. And then when we launched Micro, a couple of years later, we created a secondary product for that as well. Last year, we had an ambition to try and combine these together, and we had a pretty okay stab at it too, where essentially now, whether you're a shares user or a micro user, you had one consolidated dashboard where you could do all your automates together. It was much more customizable. You could automate money coming in and not investing it, like automate the in, but be patient, make a choice with how you use it, or you could automate just the investing, but manually send the money in. So there was a lot of customizability that came from essentially our growth with the customer base. The problem we had, though, was that in our attempt to make it quite customizable, we'd actually made it really complicated. And that was the kind of continuing feedback we got from customers over the last 12 months was that, hey, this automate is really hard to use. I've tried getting my friend or my uncle or my cousin to use it, and it was just very difficult. Can we make it easier? So we have been rolling out over the last 6 months an updated version of Automate, which we've been calling internally Automate V3. It is not the prettiest update in terms of stars and stripes and colors, which we're still working on. But from a functional perspective, it's got all the bells and whistles that we've been aiming for, particularly after some of the teething things. And just to make it a bit more concrete, I'll give you a good example. Previously, when you used to set up Automate, there'd be a lot of kind of, you'd be choosing options A through to C and then D through to F, where do you want the money to go and how much and what ratios, and there was an advanced setup button. Whereas we kind of redesigned the UX around, talking to customers and sitting down, interviewing them and saying, how do they think? Like when they come to Perla and they say, I want to automate something, what's the first thought they have? It's not typically, how am I going to direct debit? They sit down to automate and go, well, I want to automate this type of thing. I want to automate my micro investing. I want to automate how I manage my dividends. So the first question is much more oriented to the topic, and then we ask a series of follow-up questions, and it's a little bit small on the screen if you don't have a high resolution right now. But as they're building out their answers from the questions we're asking to figure out exactly how we're going to automate for them, we actually tell them a story. In this case, you can see here, it's, I want to auto deposit $1,000 every week commencing on this date, want to invest into this particular asset once the deposit reaches this amount. So there's a storytelling element to how the kind of flows set up. And that's been really good. We've gotten some pretty good feedback from new customers. I think where we've been mostly spending our time and energy and where we can continue to do better is on some of the migrations of current customers. There's a small subset of customers that I think we have definitely caused a bit of grief with the migration. It's always an opportunity for us to learn how to do better. We're confident that we're on the right track, and we're rushing to kind of catch up on any deficiencies that we've introduced along the way. But it's a really great step, and we've got the foundations there. If you do have feedback, we'd always love for you to reach out to the team. There's a few items we're currently working on, so if you have reached out to the team about it, just rest assured we are chatting about it. And if anyone has talked to us, it has come across my desk at some point too. So we're very all ears on that topic. But mostly the exciting things to look forward to going forward are some of the improvements to the visuals, because it is a very bland looking update at the moment, which is fine. We don't need to, exciting our customers with colors and rainbows isn't exactly the highest priority in terms of urgency, but it is a priority for us. We just wanted to get some of the new features and capabilities out to our customers earlier. So that's essentially what you would have seen on the platform. Most customers should have that now. There's a small subset of customers that don't have it. Just as a general rule for everyone listening, if you're curious, the way that we roll out new products at Perla pretty consistently is that when we have a new feature, we roll it out to new customers first who haven't ever used the previous version of the feature. And then we typically progressively roll it out to customers based on the way, how deeply they use the product. So if you've been, say, an Automate user for a number of years and you have multiple Automates, you're one of the last people typically to get the update, unless you kind of reach out to us and tell us, I want all the new updates all the time, just because we work from the simpler ones to the more complicated ones. So if you don't have it yet, it's just about what bucket of update that you're in at the moment. One really exciting update that the whole team is excited to share with everyone is this topic called Pay2. Now, Pay2 is one of those words that floats around the banking space like PayID, OSCO. You might have seen it. This one is probably more obscure than those other ones I mentioned, but it's essentially a real-time direct debit solution. So our Automate system, like many other platforms, has been running on the direct debit rails, rails as in system, for the last 4 years since we started. This is true for pretty much every other app you've probably used that takes money from your bank account, whether it's a gym or another investing app, or you're paying off a credit card from a separate bank. This process of pulling money from a bank account to another. So this is when Perla, you're not sending us money, you're giving us the authority to pull it from you. It takes 2 business days. It's taken 2 business days for a long time. However, advances in the Australian banking sector, which is basically the Australian government setting a standard, banks implementing the standard, and then third-party providers aggregating those banking capabilities and providing them to platforms like us, have meant that we're able to use this new feature called Pay2, supported by the banks, which allows for instantaneous transfers of money when we pull it and improved security. Now, I don't want to go too deep into it, but what I mean by improved security is that previously all you had to do was give us your BSB and account number to pull funds from your account. This is tricky for a whole bunch of reasons. It's tricky because, that data is sensitive and no one loves to share sensitive data with anyone. It's tricky because if a bad organization got hold of that, whether it's through us or through you or through anyone, they can try and pull the money from your account too. It also doesn't really require, certain levels of, how would you put it, like authorization. Whereas with Pay2, it's all done directly through your bank. So let's say you're with Commonwealth Bank. If we want to pull funds from your bank account, what has to happen there is we actually say to you through the app, hey, we want to pull, $1,000 a month based on your instruction, and you get sent to the Commonwealth Bank app, you verify with them, and only once they're happy that you verify that you want to send that money to us over some period, they give us the ability to make that instruction. So the barrier is really, really high, which is really great, again, from a security perspective. It's less data we have to store, bigger thresholds to get going, and it's instantaneous. So it's really good. The only downsides, I guess, so far are that it's quite new, and what that means is that not all banks support it. And for the banks that support it, some banks make it really, really difficult to do. It's maybe very obscure, doesn't work here, works there. That's all kind of on the banking side, but that's improving pretty exponentially at the moment. But for a certain subset of banks, we are slowly rolling that out to customers as well. We have the aim that by the end of November, so in about 8 weeks, all new setups of pool payments will be done through the system, which is a win-win for everyone. The only cases where that won't be true is any existing setups. We won't be forcing customers to change just yet. And also, if you are with a bank that is just problematic, you will have to use the old system until they get to that point. But that is very exciting. What it will look like on the platform is that when you set up any kind of automate, the payment method will not be direct debit. It will be Pay2. And just to be clear, make this a bit more concrete for you. Previously, if you wanted to auto invest on a Wednesday, we would request to pull the funds from your bank account. They would come out Wednesday night. We would be sitting there on Thursday waiting. On Friday, we'd be waiting. We'd get it on Friday at some point. Then we can make the investment on Friday. What Pay2 means is that on a Wednesday morning, if you've given us the permission to pull funds from your account, we can pull them on Wednesday morning, get them instantly, invest at Wednesday morning as well. That's really exciting. I think it's exciting, at least. I'm sure you do as well. No one likes money out of their bank account, but not where they want it to end up, right? And I'm sure a lot of us understand that from the advances that have happened with OSCO and PayID. It's really great sending money and seeing it on the other side instantly. So that's a lot of what's kind of out right now, or essentially in the final processes of being rolled out. We're going to chat a little bit about what's coming soon with Perla. Try and move through these pretty quickly as well. Probably the main one that's coming soon is an update we have to our micro product. Now, there's a lot more information coming up about this in coming weeks. This is mostly a sneak peek. So every customer who has a micro account can expect an email from us fairly soon with a detailed breakdown of this update. But we thought we'd give some of our keener bean customers that watch this webinar a bit of a sneak peek as to what's coming up in the micro space. So we released micro now maybe around a couple of years ago, and we built it to be simple. Shares investing is awesome. I invest in ETFs. It's where most of my investing money is. But we also know that not everyone is at the stage where they might have the capital or the confidence to invest directly into equities in some way. So we built the micro product to be really, really simple to take away a lot of that fear. We have learned, however, through a couple of years of talking to customers and exploring and experimenting, that we can do more to keep it simple. There's a couple of major things that you'll see updated on this topic and some minor things as well. One of the two major things that you'll see early next year is that we will be changing our pricing structure slightly, as well as our free threshold structure. So we are intending to move away from our $1.70, $2.30 split, where if you have one asset or multiple assets, it's a different price, and we're looking at a flat $2. Now, this is worth very quickly unpacking, just because obviously for half the customers on the $2.30, it's like a slightly cheaper, and the customers on the $1.70, it's slightly more. We took the approach of trying to just limit the impact of our customers. We're still quite cheap in market. We probably could have increased our prices slightly, and most customers would have been like, yeah, that's fair enough, because our main competitors, Spaceship and Raise, are notably more expensive than that on a monthly basis. So yeah, we looked at that, but we just thought it's not really the time for it. It's not something that we desperately need to do at this stage, and $2 seemed like a nice little middle ground, where a little bit of wiggle room each way will be the price going forward. That's the intentions right now. We're still in the final stages of finalizing that before we communicate it to our customers. But again, simplicity is big. I know to current customers, it might just seem like a bit of why are you doing that? But we always have to think about all the Australians out there who haven't invested before, might not even know about investing. And when we do get an opportunity to get in front of them and get them excited about it, having something very, very, very straightforward is super critical. The second change that's being done on the pricing front is that currently we have a system where if you have less than $100 invested, you basically don't pay a monthly fee. Now, it's important to unpack why we got to that point. The reason for that is because when we launched originally, the intention was to say, hey, there's people out there that can probably only invest $10 a week. If you have less than $10 a week to invest, you should probably just focus on saving it. Like it's such a small amount. A couple bucks a week is no point investing it. Like, invest in yourself, get a few more things together financially, build up that little bit of buffer. But at $10 a week, we thought, well, okay, it's reasonable to give customers a couple of months of headway where they don't feel like we're charging them along the way. So we'll eat the cost for those customers for that, first month, 2 months, 3 months that they're getting started, and then we'll start charging them after that. For simplicity, we kind of just frankly followed what Spaceship did, where we just set a threshold based off how much money we thought customers would have after a couple of months. But we've essentially changed our tune on the approach, still trying to solve the same problem, which is that instead of the $100 threshold, we're introducing a 2-month free period. So for that 2 months, whatever you invest, whether it's $100, $1,000, $10,000, $600, doesn't really matter. It's free for 2 months because we want to get into the mentality more of essentially a try before you buy. We want people to feel like they can really use the product, that we're not charging them a thing. We're actually kind of paying for them out of, it costs money for us to run it, for a period. And if they don't like it, then you can sell it out, leave it. You get your tax statement in a year. You never have to talk to us again, kind of thing. And that seems to work quite well for us because, if customers aren't at a point where you feel like, you can get $100, $200 after a couple of months in the account, because this is designed for people to regularly invest, then it might just not be the right time to use the product, which is fine as well. We're always trying to introduce other products and different kinds of products. Some of them we'll mention later for different stages. So those updates will be coming through in an email in more detail and granularity, again, imminently over the next weeks. So keep an eye out for them. But the actual changes aren't being made until early 2025. So there's lots of heads up. If you are someone who gets caught up on some of these changes, they don't quite work for you, that's okay. We know when we make these changes, there's always going to be a subset of people that are difficult to, maybe get on board, and that's all right. And we know that there might be someone who wants to part ways with us, and that's okay. It's not ideal, but we do our best to try and find the middle ground as much as we can. A very small update on Micro 2 is we're actually renaming a lot of the products. This is also on the theme of simplicity, is that we found that the product names weren't exactly quite clear to customers. I think when we started, we were trying to be a little bit cute with some of them and maybe a bit more descriptive, but again, we just got some feedback from people about, take the, what's a good example? It's like Aussie large companies. It's like, well, a lot of people are investing in large companies, and most of our early investors in Micro weren't really splitting hairs between large companies, small companies. They just were like, I want to invest in Australian stuff, or I want to invest overseas, or I want to invest in the whole world, or just the USA and things like that. We still have our kind of clearly signposted, ESG, environmental, social governance things. So for more, I guess, ethically, socially, environmentally aware companies. But that simplification, again, should be really important for new customers. It won't have an impact on current ones, but it's worth sharing with you all because, naturally there's a bunch of people here who use those products. But I'm sure there's some people listening who've never used Micro, so let's move on from that one. Another really cool update that's coming soon is a refresh of our app design. I mentioned this earlier about Automate is quite sterile in some ways. I only have a few screenshots for you here, but we've actually been working on a redesigned entire app ecosystem now for about, I'd say, depending on how you slice it, 6 to 12 months, somewhere inside there. It's probably approximately 10% of all time spent in the business right now is just improving the look and the feel of the app. This isn't just visuals. It's also how fast it is. It's also how smooth it is, how straightforward it is, but without changing the functionality. So it's been a very we're not trying to reinvent the app again or anything like that, but let's just make it a lot more pleasant to use visually, physically, everything else. It is the kind of thing that we'll be rolling out pretty much starting in December, very slowly to customers over a couple of months. But if you log in one day and it feels particularly nicer, that's what we've been working on. And there's a lot of customers out there that have little issues with the app, and we kind of listen to them a lot. We get a lot of people sending us really nice messages about how easy Perla is to use and how, straightforward it is. But we also get a lot of messages about it being buggy or it being tricky or something small not working or just a little awkwardness. I was noticing something even earlier today, when you go to the homepage of Perla and you click on the sign in button, and the email box that you type into, it doesn't automatically highlight. So let's say, you're on your laptop, you click on the thing, you can't just start typing, you have to click on the input box as well. It's essentially the aggregate of, 1,000 small things like that have become the focus of this project, because we think we can do a lot better in terms of app experience. And very sweet, so many people that say nice things about us. But as far as when we look at the app, we think, this is about a 4 out of 10 in terms of like where we should be, where a 10 out of 10 is our objective. So it might take us a while to get there, but rest assured we're working very hard on it. And I hope those images give you a bit of a sense of intrigue, at least, about what's coming up. One of the other things that you'll see imminently in the app in the next couple of months is more calculators. We've been working on some more interesting calculators. Obviously, we've had our compound interest, investing frequency, the really simple ones, but common ones that our customers talk to us about are novated lease calculators for car leasing, stamp duty calculators for home owning, debt recycling calculators for, finding more tax efficient debt on your home loan, and first home super saver scheme calculators. Sorry for the typo there. I just noticed that, for when people are trying to buy their home and use the government super scheme. So a little bit more heavy calculators, but again, requested from our customers. They should be interesting. Keep an eye out. We will be kind of, emailing out about them. And we're always looking for customer feedback too, because all calculators tend to start off quite simple. And then usually there'll be feedback around, what about this? What about that? And then that's usually where we invest a bit more time. Here are 2 that we're working on. These are actually kind of finished. Not all of them have been released, but we've got a draft for our novated lease calculator, and we've also got a stamp duty calculator that works for some states. People might ask, why do we do some of this? Because there's things out there. It's a pretty fair question, like we ask ourselves that too sometimes. Like, we didn't invent the stamp duty calculator, but we also didn't invent the compound interest calculator. We didn't invent an ideal investing frequency calculator. Our objective and our mission is to create a place where people can access all of the resources they need. If most average people were comfortable looking around 10 different websites or apps trying to find answers, then there probably wouldn't be a need for what we're doing. But, we know that even just using one app for money can be quite a hurdle for people in terms of building trust and in terms of building, that excitement and confidence. So we try and do things progressively more and more in one place just to do it right by our customers. Last thing on the kind of soon list is product updates. Product updates, if you can't kind of tell from this webinar, we tend to push a lot of work out. And what that means is that it's sometimes hard for our customers to keep track of things. And obviously we have people here in the webinar, which are probably the most engaged of our customers. But our aim is that we want to essentially, this is a quick mock-up because we're in the process of building the service side behind the scenes, not so much the user interface. That, when you log in, you're able to turn on a feature where there's some really easy way to kind of see what's happened in the app since you last logged in. Because we're always adjusting stuff, and customers send us some feedback and we go, oh, great point. Someone might say, I like the notifications, but I hate that I can't delete them. So we go, okay, we'll make them deletable. Or they say, the search is good, but I feel like it'd be cool if I could search settings. So we go and add that in. That stuff happens a lot. And it's a real shame, A, when customers don't know about the cool work that might benefit them. And B, it's a shame when customers log in and something's changed and it's a little disorienting. So a more automated way where customers can stay up to date with the updates that they're getting in the app is high on our list as well. Now, getting into some of the later big picture topics, which are things that, I would say we're not planning to wrap up necessarily by Christmas, either because it's going to take a lot longer or because while we are doing stuff on the topic, it will take longer for us to close it all out. And there were 4 things on that topic. The first one here is, you can see it behind my head. That's a 2. Head Start V2. So we have a Head Start app. Maybe a small number of our customers are using this app, like 5% of customers. It's an app that's specifically designed to help you invest for your kids. The interesting thing though is that you can actually do that on the Perler app as well. There's nothing in our separate Head Start app that the Perler app can't do. So we've been asking ourselves really, a question for a while, which is, what are some of the features of this that this app might include in the future? One of them that we've been working on is the ability for when you log into the app. So if you have a Head Start app right now, you'd know what I mean. If you don't, think of it just like a Perler Lite version that only lets you do the investing for your kids stuff. We actually want to create a version of it that's like safe for kids, where either, if they're teenagers, they can install it on their phone to see how, the investments you've got for them are going. Or if you're a parent with younger kids, you can put it on your phone in like a kind of a lockdown mode, like a child safe mode, where they can't go and, sell their money or add money to it or anything like that. It's like view only. And the reason for this is because, whenever we talk about topics that are investing for kids, there's 2 really interesting sides to it, which is, how do we make it easy for parents to invest for their kids? And that's where we've been spending all of our time. The other side of it is, how do we make it engaging for kids? And not in a way that's like opportunistic, like we're trying to suck them into it or anything, but in a way that's like, how do we teach a 16-year-old about compound interest in a way that, when they get their first job, they're going to start investing? Obviously we're not really thinking, we need to capture these kids to become Perler users later. It's more just, we know it's important to educate young people because, there's a real lack of knowledge about the power of investing and good personal finance habits. So how can we work with parents? Because a lot of this is with parents to make the best kind of thing that they'd want their kids engaging with a little bit. How do we show the kids enough information to get them excited and motivated to learn about it, but not so much that it's stressful or not sending the right message? There's a lot for us to do in consultation with parents. I probably won't talk about this in the next couple of webinars because it is really like a 12-month journey probably for us to have something like this, because there's a lot of, we got to get the product right, we got to get it checked with our customers, we got to get it approved and a whole bunch of other things. But the short story is we are working on a kid view. Now, I've talked about this previously, and we did ask parents to reach out if they wanted to be feedback providers, and a lot of people have. So if you're listening to this again and you were part of that crew, we haven't reached out to anyone yet because we just haven't gotten far enough on it, but we will when the time is right. And if you're someone new listening and you're like, I have a kid, this sounds cool, then reach out in an email that we'll show you at the end of the webinar. About 1,000 users of ours have been trialing out our spending tracking tool. Our spending tracking tool does not look like this currently. This is some new work we've been working on with a team member. But it is essentially one of those tools where you connect your bank account, it gives you a list of all your transactions, and you categorize them, and it tells you how much you've been spending. We have been quietly working on this for a while. We think we're about 60-70% of the way. We think the version that we released in 2022, 2023 was just not up to standard yet. So we quietly stopped updating it on the app, and we've been working on it behind the scenes. All of our energy has been spent on categorization, well, nearly all of our energy. We think the secret to these apps is to be able to categorize most things automatically for our customers accurately. Normal people don't have time to go through and categorize transactions one by one. So we need to bridge that gap. We've done some early design work on it to test out the product, but the big thing we're still trying to get right is the categorization. If we can't get the categorization right, we won't launch a version of this into market at any scale, because we just think normal people won't use it. So that's the big challenge that we've been tackling, where we have a theory about what might work quite well. We're currently in the stages of verifying it. So either there'll be some updates for you in a few months about the progress that we've made, or if there aren't updates, it's probably not looking the best. It is something that we care very deeply about. Investing is awesome. It's kind of, the blood and bones of what we do. However, we know that, again, for more than half of Australians right now, they're not sitting around wondering how to invest $1,000 a month. They're sitting around trying to figure out how to cut down their spending by $50 a week. And they're looking for tools to help them out. And banking apps are getting better at it, which is great. Though a lot of people still do multi-banking. They bank with multiple banks. And even then, some of the banks' attempts at this are quite rudimentary. So we're doing our best to get it right. It's not something we spend a lot of time on. We have bigger priorities at Pearler than this particular product. But we know if we get it right, it'll be quite impactful. So we're still in the stages of experimenting very patiently. So keep an eye out for that. Hopefully there's some good news there in the future, but that's one of the things on our agenda. Pearler Plus, this is also falls into the same bucket where we have been experimenting with a premium version of Pearler. We've talked about this for a couple of webinars. I don't want to rehash it too much for our kind of loyal webinar followers. And there are a bunch of people who provided feedback that we're still churning through. But the idea again with this is that we have a couple hundred subscribers at the moment to this. There's things that are hard for Pearler to offer in terms of unit economics. Like it makes sense, like if you're running any kind of business and someone says, I want a bigger seat on a plane, you can't just make a bigger seat with the same cost of the tickets because you just run out of money at some point as a business. However, if you say, well, actually, there's a little bit of extra you can give us, then we can give you more. That sounds interesting, So that's essentially what this is we're looking at a bunch of stuff that costs the business money that is very difficult to, provide right now. So we don't provide it. However, what if we, offered a service where something was very, very affordable, where we could offer a whole bunch of little things like that. This is something that I think has confused a few of our customers. It's not about us locking away features. There's nothing that we currently provide to customers that we lock away. And if we were providing something to a customer that we then said this is part of the premium service, it would only ever be new customers. We wouldn't lock out old customers. For in any reasonable amount of time frame at all. And a lot of the things that you're kind of seeing on this list, which are still not finalized, are things that cost us money, particularly around data, because some of the data that we provide is actually quite expensive for us to provide. And we're always kind of tossing up between should we just cut the service or not cut the service. So we think, well, what if it only costs someone, $1 a month or 50 cents a month as part of a bigger package. So again, a funny topic. We don't want to get it wrong. So you haven't heard a lot about it because we're still trying to get it right before we really kind of, try and convince everyone to use it, so to speak. So we're still in the final stages of that. We think we'll have something. We just want to make sure it's as awesome as it can be. And thank you to everyone so far who has provided feedback on it. If you do have more feedback, you can always email me at the email address at the end as well. And I think this is the last thing we have to talk about today, coming up to the 45-minute mark, which is, again, sorry for my head being in the way. Should really, not do that next time. Which is our First Home Super Saver content. So we've been really big on First Home Super Saver recently, if anyone's been quietly paying attention. We've been producing quite a lot of material for it. It's become a topic in our Aussie Fire podcast, as well as our Get Rich Slow podcast. Here are just 3 blogs that we have on the topic as well. It's a really exciting scheme that is super useful in terms of saving people money. We've been building some calculators for it quietly behind the scenes. We think it's really exciting, and it's come up a lot because a lot of our customers are under 40, and a lot of people still want to buy a home, right? Like there's an interesting topic around our investment properties the right way, or as investing in the stock market the right way. But the fundamental truth seems to be that well over 90% of Australians would like to own the place they live in. So if the government is providing ways, even if very complicated ways to understand, to make you in a position where you can buy a home quicker by taking advantage of the First Home Super Saver scheme, then that's the thing we're spending more time on. We've got a lot more exciting plans in this space, so keep an eye on us. Obviously, we'll definitely let you know about them. So we have very large ambitions in terms of how we're able to help people in this space. But in the meantime, if you haven't already kind of paid attention to the First Home Super Saver scheme and you haven't bought your first home yet, start reading up on it. We've got blogs and whatnot. You can email me. Sorry about that small glitch. As I was saying, keep an eye out for any updates we have on the first time Super Saver content. It is very interesting, and we have a lot more to share. So, get engaged if you aren't already. This pretty much brings us to the end. If you do have interest in being a beta tester for anything we've talked about in the future and you haven't reached out to us previously, you can simply email product@pearler.com and we will be able to get in touch with you to give you early access to stuff. So, if you're excited, do that. Otherwise, we're pretty much just here for some questions at the end. We haven't had any questions in the chat. It's been a particularly quiet webinar today, I guess you would say, in the chat. So we'll just kind of leave it open for a couple minutes to see if people have questions before we start wrapping up and closing out. It does take a moment for YouTube to capture the comments and send them to me when people type them. So I'm going to have to kind of fill the void of speaking for a short moment whilst we see if anyone is going to reach out to us. I will say in general, I hope these webinars are useful to people. We try and do them to keep our more engaged customers excited. We don't expect the average everyday person to spend 45 minutes of the day watching these things. That's not our expectation at all, but we always know that there's people who either have some spare time and are interested, pop in once in a while, or just are big fans of what we're doing. So it's always great to kind of hear from those people. So yeah, we'll just see if there's any questions before we wrap up today. Just refreshing the page in case it was buggy. Very suspicious of the lack of any questions, but cool. And I'm also just going to double check people can actually post them, just in case there's a slim chance that we locked everyone out from contributing. I think it's okay. Well, if we screwed something up and people are trying to comment, I'm sorry. Keep an eye on that next time. Yeah, it should be good. Actually, there's a thing in here that says you have to have subscribed for 1 minute. So I've just changed that to any time. But I'm going to assume by the... There we go. Cool. Got a couple of comments. Just some thanks from people. Thank you for coming. I won't take up any more of your time. I'm not going to drag out any questions. If you do have questions, you can always just email product@pearler.com or my email address if you have it. Thank you for listening. Hope you're enjoying what we're doing, and always reach out if you've got thoughts. We're here for you. So have a great